Video games in modern society are arguably the biggest form of entertainment. From sports games to military shooters to platformers and so much more, there is something for anybody of any demographic to get hours enjoyment out of. It didn't used to be this way, however, and video games had very, very simple beginnings, all the way back in the 1950s to 1970s. The first really popular and universally acclaimed video game was Pong. Pong is a simple game that involves two paddles and one ball, with a simple scorekeeping that awards victory to whoever gets 11 points first. Functioning like a basic tennis game, essentially, nearly everyone across all ages can understand and learn it quickly. Pong is what we are going to discuss today. Now, advancing technology in the latter half of the 20th century is what would eventually lead to the release of Pong, one of the most widely known and popular games of all time. Ralph Baer originally proposed the idea in 1958 of making simple games that could play on their television sets, which were also a new technology at the time. Baer would eventually go on to develop the Magnavox Odyssey game system, which would be the first commercial home console. It was released in 1972 with many games, one of which was a game called Table Tennis. This was a rudimentary tennis game that would go on to be the inspiration that Atari needed to create their own rendition.
This is Odyssey, the new electronic game simulator. You attach Odyssey to your television set in seconds to create a closed-circuit electronic playground.
The founder of Atari, Nolan Bushnell, used this framework to assign creating a Pong-like game to Alan Alcorn, the new Atari engineer, as a training exercise. Alcorn would develop his version by following the blueprint laid out by Bushnell, which in itself was inspired by the Magnavox Odyssey game, Table Tennis. This version that he would call Pong, however, was a far more advanced version of the simple concept, with different trajectories depending on where the ball hits each paddle, scorekeeping up to 11, and a ball that speeds up the longer the game went on. Alcorn, at the urging of Bushnell and other Atari co-founder Ted Dabney, created sound effects in the game, and would make a mock-up model of the arcade machine. In August of 1972, Alcorn and Bushnell put this prototype into a local bar called Andy Capp's Tavern. This prototype was hugely successful, especially for Atari, which at the time was just a tiny company manufacturing the cabinets out of an old roller skating rink. After nearly licensing the game to Midway Manufacturing, Atari would secure a line of credit from Wells Fargo, which they used to expand their manufacturing capability. The game immediately gained success and would soon sell thousands of units. The gameplay of Pong is simple and easy to understand, which helped contribute to its popularity. Two paddles, one moving ball, and a scoreboard. It really couldn't get much simpler and more competitive. In 1975, Atari took the next step and began developing the game into a home console version. This version, called Home Pong, came through a partnership with the Sears Company. The development of this version was made by two Atari engineers, Alan Alcorn and Harold Lee. They worked in shifts as a cost-saving measure, with Lee working during the day and Alcorn during the evenings. After the complexity of the initial prototype, the team eventually managed to fit the game onto a single chip. Atari approached many toy and electronic retailers in an attempt to sell Home Pong, but was rejected numerous times, with retailers citing the excessive price of the game. They eventually contacted Sears after seeing a Magnavox Odyssey ad in their sporting goods section, and after many discussions and Atari nearly denying any offer, the two parties came to an agreement, and Atari was to make 150,000 units for the Christmas season of 1975. These units sold astoundingly well. Earlier I mentioned the Magnavox Odyssey, released as a home console with a game called Table Tennis. As one might imagine, this would cause issues for Pong. In April 1974, Magnavox would file a suit against Atari for infringing on a patent of the concept of an electric ping pong game. They had a lot of evidence of their game development starting as far back as 1966, and proof that Nolan Bushnell, the Atari co-founder, had played their game prior to the release of Pong. Bushnell would even admit this, saying that it wasn't a very clever game. In the end, Atari would settle out of court by becoming a licensee for $1.5 million, paid in 8 installments. Magnavox also gained the right to full information on any Atari products announced or released over the next year. This may have led to a delay in the announcement of the Atari 2600 to avoid disclosing information about their new console. Now, Pong undoubtedly has one of the biggest lasting legacies in the gaming industry. The original arcade machine was one of the most successful at the time, selling 8,000 machines by the end of 1974 and launching a lucrative business of Pong clones in arcades. Approximately only 1/3 of Pong games in arcades were the actual thing. The rest were clones. Home Pong was also a huge success, and the 150,000 units that Sears requested easily sold during the holiday season of 1975, creating one of the first home console successes. Atari gained renown through its game Pong, and everyone was trying to clone its success. There are many publications that consider Pong to be the game that launched the video game industry as something that could be profitable. It was also one of the first social games, a fact that Bushnell appreciated. He said, "It was very common to have a girl with a quarter in hand pull a guy off a bar stool and say, 'I'd like to play Pong,' and there's nobody to play. It was a way you could play games. You were sitting shoulder to shoulder. You could talk, you could laugh, you could challenge each other. As you became better friends, you could put down your beer and hug. You could put your arm around the other person. You could play left-handed if you so desired. In fact, there are a lot of people who have come up to me over the years and said, 'I met my wife playing Pong,' and that's kind of a nice thing to have achieved." Well, he was right. And after all, video games have always been a social experience in some way at their core, and Pong is no different. Hey everybody, Cameron here. Just wanted to come in real quick at the end of the video and say thank you for watching. Really, means a lot. If you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that would help me out a ton. I know this video was a little bit different than some of the stuff I usually make. I usually cover a lot more like military history type stuff, but I thought this would be interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I can make some more stuff just like it. Anywho, that's all I got. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.